Welcome back to Take Care Time, the tales and exhales of caregivers. I'm your host, Beverly Nance. If you haven't listened to episodes 1 and 2 of Timber and Trust, stop, go back, and give them a listen because this will make this episode easier to follow. Last week, we said goodbye to Ralph Raines Sr., a visionary who turned acres of Oregon timber into a flourishing empire. Now his son Ralph Jr. stands at the helm, inheriting not just $15 million worth of timberlands, but a legacy heavy with expectation and hidden snares. During a meeting with Detective Steve Floyd, Ralph Jr. has learned that his friend Rachel Lee has been stealing from him. Ralph tells Steve that he wants his money back, but he doesn't want Rachel or his wife to be charged with a crime. Ralph Jr. was devoted to them. Steve Floyd left Ralph Jr.'s house, and the case picked up speed. The IRS got involved, along with the Portland U.S. Attorney's Office. They knew that they had to act fast because Ralph Jr.'s devotion to Rachel, there was a risk that he would tip her off about the investigation. The investigative team moved quickly to get a search warrant of Rachel's psychic shop in Canby, the shop where the Ferrari was parked. But there was one question that they couldn't answer or shake. Who and where was Ralph Jr.'s wife, Mary Marks? Was she back in California, or was she living in a different country? They couldn't find a record of her. What the investigators found out is Ralph Jr.'s wife, Mary Marks, who he met at the airport seemingly at random, was in fact his friend and psychic Rachel Lee's daughter, Portia Lee. She had been pretending to be Mary Marks for 7 years. The blonde hair was a wig, and the British accent, that was completely fake. This is absolutely horrible. Let's take a short break. As we unfold today's story, let's take note of the importance of vigilance and care for our seniors. Let's not forget the caregivers who dedicate their lives to protecting and nurturing their loved ones. To all the caregivers out there, it's time for you to take a moment for yourself with the Take Care Time Respite Box. Each bi-monthly box is filled with items carefully selected to promote relaxation and rejuvenation, from soothing teas and aromatherapy oils to inspirational books and personal care items. Every item is chosen to help you recharge and refresh during your well-deserved respite. Take Your Time understands the challenges you face and the strength you bring each day. That's why we've created something just for you, to remind you that taking care of yourself is just as important as the care you give to others. Subscribe today and give yourself the gift of self-care. Visit takecaretime.com to learn more and to order your first box. Because sometimes the most important care is taking a moment for yourself. Back to our story. Rachel Lee had her daughter Portia when she was a teenager. By 2007, when Portia began to play the role of Mary Marks, she was only 17 years old. Her mother was in her late 30s. It was all an elaborate plan. Rachel told Ralph Jr. that he would soon meet a woman who would be very important to his life, someone he might marry, and then she sent her daughter, in a wig, to the airport to run into Ralph Jr. and introduce herself as Mary Marks. For the first 2 years, they were just friends. And then they had a wedding ceremony when Portia was 19 years old, but it was never a legal marriage. But Ralph Jr. didn't know that. Ralph Jr. and Mary Marks also never had a sexual relationship. For Ralph Jr., having a wife was more about legacy and continuing the Raines family farm and pleasing his father when he was alive, and less about actually being in a relationship. Although Ralph believed he and Mary Marks were married, she lived in California and they did not see each other often. Ralph was getting what he thought was a family, the next generation. Detective Steve Floyd asked Ralph how his son Giorgio was conceived, considering that the relationship was never sexual, and Ralph Jr. told him that they used artificial insemination, but they didn't use a clinic. Ralph said he had put his semen in a bottle, which Mary Marks took to California, and about 9 months later, she showed up with a baby. She told Ralph it was their son, named Giorgio. The weird thing about the baby, however, was that Giorgio was not a newborn. Poor Ralph. Oh dear. Giorgio was about 6 months old, but Ralph Jr. didn't seem to notice. To him, Giorgio was his son. Family was all he wanted. It was found out later that Giorgio was actually the child of another of Rachel Lee's daughters. Rachel and Mary borrowed the baby for the con. The ruse worked. Rachel got access to his $15 million, and Ralph Jr. got a family. Rachel had been sending Ralph Jr. money to nearly all of her family members, her father, uncle, children, and boyfriend. Detective Steve needed to move quickly because Ralph Jr. told Rachel about the investigation and she could skip town any minute. In May of 2014, Detective Steve Floyd got a search warrant. The night before they were set to search, Steve got a bad feeling, so he gave Ralph Jr. a call just to check on him, to make sure that he was okay. Steve was asking questions, and Ralph was answering with one-word responses. He asked Ralph where he was, and Ralph said he was in Bend, Oregon. Bend is the location of one of Rachel's houses, which is a 3-hour drive from Canby. It appeared to the detective that Rachel was already on the move. He asked Ralph if he was afraid to talk. Once again, Ralph said no. He asked if he had talked to Rachel about the investigation. Ralph said yes. He asked if Rachel was there with him in Bend, and Ralph said yes. After they ended the call, Steve moved forward with the search warrant in Canby and planned to intercept Rachel in Bend afterwards. During the search, police were able to find proof of Rachel's vast criminal enterprise, along with Portia Lee's Mary Mark's disguise. The wig, the baseball cap, glasses were found under a bed in the master bedroom. Rolex watches, Cartier watches, blank checks with Ralph Jr.'s signature, notepad with all his passwords, his computer accounts, Facebook, YouTube, a bill for $29,000 for furniture. Rachel had sold off the entire Raines family tree farm, liquidating the family's assets and living off the proceeds. She funneled this money, along with her real estate investment, back into her own bank account. Not only that, she had taken Ralph Jr.'s name off all of the deeds. For Ralph Jr., there was very little money left from his $15 million inheritance. Ralph Jr. had about $200,000 left by the time authorities stepped in. The investigation was closing in on Rachel Lee, and then the U.S. Attorney received a letter, allegedly from Ralph Jr., asking that the investigation be stopped. The letter started by saying, "I am not a victim, and I don't want to press any charges," that he trusted Rachel Lee fully, and he did not want authorities to be involved in the matter. Of course, the letter was suspicious. The last anyone had heard, Ralph was with Rachel in Bend. Officials raced to get to the house. They arrived just in time. They had purchased burner phones that could not be traced, their bags were packed, and it looked like they were ready to disappear. Rachel Lee told Ralph Jr. that they all needed to take a vacation, and Ralph Jr. believed her. Rachel told Ralph Jr. that she was taking him to Area 51. That's important because that is a place that Ralph Jr. has always wanted to visit, and what better way to lure him away than to visit there. Rachel was able to continue to manipulate Ralph Jr. right up until the time of her and her daughter's arrest. Yes, they were finally arrested. They cooperated with the prosecution and pled guilty to conspiracy to commit wire fraud and conspiracy to commit money laundering. Authorities were able to seize the vast amount of Rachel's acquired assets to return to Ralph Jr., about $5 million, but psychological damage was already done. Despite the guilty plea, Ralph Jr. still wanted to believe his wife, Mary Marks, was real. He couldn't process that there was no such person. To that end, the U.S. Attorney arranged with Ralph Jr.'s lawyer to have Portia Lee come into a room with the Mary Marks disguise and remove the blonde wig, the glasses, showing once and for all that she was a different person. Portia did just that. She even spoke with a British accent and removed the wig and spoke in her regular voice, and that was sufficient for Ralph Jr. to understand that she was, in fact, someone else. Poor Ralph Jr. He had to grapple with the fact that his relationship was not real, his friendship with Rachel was not real, and the worst part, Giorgio was not really his son. It was a fake world created by Rachel so she could take all of his money. Sadly, the last time Marlene saw Ralph Jr., he had not changed much. He still wore lager clothes, drove a truck, but Marlene noticed that he was still wearing his wedding ring. How sad. In the end, Ralph Jr. was the perfect target for Rachel, a solitary, socially awkward heir with a substantial fortune. Over the course of 10 years, Rachel skillfully exploited and manipulated his deeply human need for connection. Portia Lee was released from prison in 2017, and her mom, Rachel, was released in 2020. Hopefully, they are not exploiting anyone else. Join us next week for another tale or exhale of caregivers. Until next week, take care. Do you have an interesting caregiver story that you would like to have told? Contact us at podcast@takecaretime.com. We would love to hear from you. As we close today's chapter of Timber and Trust, we are reminded of the vulnerabilities that can accompany even the most seemingly secure fortunes. It's crucial to remain vigilant, especially in protecting our seniors from potential scams. Again, here are a few key strategies everyone should consider to help safeguard the finances and well-being of the elderly in our communities. Number 1, regular communication. Keep regular contact with elderly family members. Open and frequent communication helps to reduce their isolation, a condition scammers often exploit. It also allows you to spot any sudden or unusual changes in their behavior or financial situation. Number 2, educate about common scams. Educate yourself and your elderly loved ones about the most common types of scams. Information is power. Discuss how these scams work and remind them to never share personal or financial information over the phone or online with strangers. Number 3, encourage skepticism. Encourage a healthy level of skepticism in our elderly family members. Remind them that it's okay to say no, hang up the phone, or delete an email. Legitimate businesses and government agencies will not use high-pressure tactics to ask for sensitive information unexpectedly. Number 4, set up financial safeguards. Help set up safeguards for financial accounts. This could include setting up alerts for unusual transactions, establishing durable power of attorney, or using financial management services that require dual approval for significant transactions. Number 5, professional advice. Consult with professionals. Encourage regular reviews of financial health with trusted and reputable financial advisors and legal professionals. This can be especially helpful in making sound decisions and avoiding dubious schemes. And number 6, report and discuss. Finally, make sure to know how to report a scam. Discuss the importance of reporting any suspicious activity to authorities. This not only helps in potentially recovering lost funds, but also prevents scammers from harming others. By fostering an environment of awareness and support, we can protect our seniors from the deceitful tactics of scammers and ensure their golden years remain safe and secure. Join us next time. Until then, keep watch and take care.